September 13th, 2021. My name is Lori Kurtz. My pronouns are she, hers. Would you please introduce yourself? Tell us your pronouns if you care to, and tell us all the things you do.
My name is Darling Divine. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a burlesque artist. I am a choreographer, a producer, teacher. In my day job, I'm also a massage therapist. So,
And what is burlesque?
Burlesque, to me, everyone has their own definition, but to me, burlesque is just an expression of oneself, specifically one's like sexuality and their like inner being. So this can come out in any type of form. I don't think it has to necessarily be stripping or be, dance or anything. I think there's burlesque comedians out there, there's burlesque singers out there. It's just expressing who you are.
And how do you describe the kind of burlesque that you do?
I'm a dancer. I've always been a dancer. So, any sort of movement. I dabble in all sort of like burlesque genres. So classic, neo-burlesque, comedy, burlesque. I've kind of dabbled into all of it, even some gender bending stuff as well. Because why not explore everything? So.
And you mentioned some terms there, classic and then neo-burlesque. What's the difference?
Yeah, classic burlesque is like Sally Rand, Josephine Baker, like all of those 50s, 60s, or even before artists. And then neo-burlesque is like the resurgence of all that, because in the history of burlesque, like it kind of like faded in sort of the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, somewhere in there it sort of faded, and then it's kind of come back. And so that's all this new stuff, and it's not necessarily this like pristine, like I'm taking off my beautiful little glove filled with rhinestones, and it's can be a little grungy and a little dirty and more artistic flair onto it. So
yeah. And the gender bending, what is that and how does that manifest in performance?
Gender bending is just performing with a different gender than you traditionally identify as. So I traditionally identify as a female, and so I've done an act where I was a male presenting, and like even stuffed my pants a little bit and just tried to take on very stereotyped male like characteristics in my act and stuff. But I mean, there's other ways to do it, of course, too. Like you can switch halfway through an act. You could, it's really anything you want. But
yeah. And if you're a dancer and have always been a dancer, why do you do burlesque? What does it give you artistically?
Partly it just gives me an outlet. I feel like as an adult, there's not as many dance opportunities in this world, especially if you're not wanting to be, professional, companies and troupes or ballet troupes or, on that level and that commitment. So burlesque gives me that. It's like a nice little way to like keep my passion while also exploring other parts of my life. And then since joining burlesque, like I've really just found more creativity and learned about costuming and learned about productions and found this like amazing group of people that, love and support each other and help each other within the arts community and outside of the arts community. So, yeah.
And on the spectrum of various sex work, where does burlesque land?
Yeah. Ooh. I like if sex work is a spectrum and at one end you have like, prostitution. I don't know if I would say that's the right word, but prostitution and escort and all that is like one end. I would say burlesque is at the very other end. that's just my kind of thoughts on that. I don't particularly consider burlesque sex work. I think it's more of like sexual education and awakening for people, but not necessarily sex work. But
And where were you born and where did you grow up?
yeah, I grew up, well, I was born in Eastern Idaho, but I grew up in Boise, Idaho. And then after I turned 18, I moved to Seattle for a little bit, which is where I started burlesque. And then now I'm here in Bend, Oregon. So
Yeah. And then while you were in Idaho, what did you do in your formative years, whatever that is, that led you to performance?
yeah, I have been dancing since I was 3 years old. I started with ballet and slowly just have done everything: tap, jazz, contemporary, modern, hip hop, although I'm not great at that. I've done a little bit of acting here and there when I was a child. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my background on before burlesque. So
Yeah. And what, if any, formal training or college do you have?
yeah, I went to Cornish College of the Arts. I went there for 2 years, so I don't actually have a degree in anything, because I decided to leave after that. And then while at Cornish, I took Cherry Manhattan's School of Burlesque course, so I kind of learned burlesque through her.
Yeah. Yeah. And so while you were in Seattle then, in what year and when or how did you get started in burlesque?
Year. Okay, let me do some math real quick. 15, 16, 2017. I think I started her class. It was actually just through the college. She was a professor there, and every spring she would have a burlesque course, and you went through, a brief burlesque history. You like created your persona and character, and then you debuted into a show. So that's how I started that. I just had heard it was, first off, I had no idea what burlesque really was, besides like Christina Aguilera's burlesque, movie, which is not quite like that, like accurate representation. So that was my only knowledge of it. And so after taking the class, it was like, wow, like this is a whole world I had no idea about. And I love it. I love being in it. So I'm glad I took it.
How did you pick your stage name?
Yes, so my real last name is Dalling, Dalling. But every time people hear that, they hear darling. So all throughout my childhood and high school and even college, people would call me darling. So I just knew I had to like put that into my burlesque name. So after knowing darling, I just played with a ton of words. I love alliteration. So I played with a ton of words and like flip-flopped them back and forth, and finally came on Darling Divine. And I like it the most, so
Yeah.
it's stuck.
Great. And then what brought you to Bend?
After I decided I didn't want to stay in the professional dance world in Seattle, I moved to Bend to become a massage therapist. So I went to a trade school here and have been doing that since. So
How did you discover burlesque in Bend?
yeah, I had looked, as I was moving to Bend, I'd looked up every like dance studio. I'd looked up for classes everywhere because I was like, I'm not giving up dance to be a massage therapist. I just want something else. And I didn't find really any adult classes at all. And so I moved to Bend just thinking like, okay, I'll have to like get my like certification and then I'll like move to Portland or something where there's more arts. And while I was here, I turned 20 young. I'm very young right now. So I turned 21 when I first moved here. And for some reason, just felt inspired to look up burlesque in Bend, which I hadn't done before. And Bend Burlesque like popped up. And so I went and I auditioned. Oh, right as I like looked them up, they popped up and they had auditions in the next month. They had just started advertising for it. So I was like, oh my goodness, meant to be. Contacted them, went and auditioned, and here I am, part of it all. So yeah.
And so you knew a little bit about the burlesque community in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different than the burlesque community in Bend?
Yes. Several different ways. The burlesque community in Seattle is much larger, first off. And with that comes more diversity for sure. But I think with that comes more, I don't want to say professionalism, but because Bend is still very professional when it comes to burlesque, but Bend is more small town, more laid back compared to Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then the burlesque community in Bend or Eastern Oregon, who is it? What's it? What is that community like?
Yeah. I don't know of any other burlesque in Eastern Oregon besides Bend Burlesque. I don't know if you know of any. Yeah, I don't either. I wish there was. I feel like Ontario or, even Burns perhaps could create something, but in the future, hopefully. Yeah, so Bend Burlesque is it, and is very laid back. It's started off with just Montana St. Clair and Little Leasy just created it because they liked burlesque and they just wanted it here, and they collaborated with the band. It was Company Grand Band, and just started like literally just kind of dancing on stage with the band, and then slowly they started Bend Burlesque Company, and I joined in when they started like really taking off, because they've been around 10-ish years, but the first few years it was just them two and one other dancer. So once I kind of joined in with the audition group of a bunch of people, it sort of started evolving even larger and stuff. So but yeah, it's very like we all know each other because it's so small, so it's very community oriented. And yeah, you just know every single person who wants to be in burlesque or is doing burlesque, or you see the same people at your shows all the time, which is cool too. So yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of venues do you perform at?
Yeah. There is not a ton of venues in Bend. We perform a lot at like bars, or bars have like a little mini stage, and so we'll perform there. There are like Volcanic Theater is like a nicer venue that we'll perform at. The Capitol, especially, so they were more of a bar venue at first, but they just redid their entire like area because they love us, and I kind of feel like they did it for us, but I don't know. I thought that's probably not accurate, but that's what I think. And yeah, so they are definitely like a really amazing venue now. You have larger venues. We haven't been able to get into those larger venues like the Domino Room or the Tower Theater, which is a big one. A, because they're a little expensive, and B, because burlesque, we're still trying to be, I don't know, a lot of people think of us just as like strippers in this community, and so they don't want that in their venue. And so we're still trying to kind of put this professional like face in front of like, no, this is a large production and we'll sell out. So yeah.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the audiences, and some are faithful repeat audience members. Who is drawn to your shows?
Yeah. I would say everybody, but that's probably not true, since there's a lot of political diversity in this town, and comfortability when it comes to, seeing people stripping on a stage. So yeah, definitely probably people that are more comfortable seeing that. We get a lot of women coming to see us, and they're like dragging their, man to come with them, or so that, I mean, that's pretty cool. Like, it's not like a strip club where it's traditionally just like very male audience coming in. Yeah, it's a lot of women, and a lot of women talking afterward to be like, wow, like this is so like empowering, I can never do this. And then us telling them like, yes you can, like just come take a class, or come watch us again, and like you'll get more comfortable with it all, and that. And then we've also seen two different communities. We've seen a lot of like kink communities, and just like looking for some sort of sexual outlet, or thing like that. And then we see a lot of the LGBTQ plus community coming to our shows, and loving that. So yeah.
And what is it about burlesque that is empowering to these women?
For me personally, it's the sexual empowerment. I was raised very like religious, where like sex is bad, and so just being like freeing of like, actually this is a very healthy, important thing to your life and your body and the community. That that's what I'm like attracted to a lot in burlesque. But I see a lot of other women are just or people in general are just attracted to the confidence of burlesque, and watching someone on stage who's confident enough to show her inner self, or their inner self, and show their body, and take empowerment of their of their self and of their sexuality. I think a lot of people are missing that in their lives, and missing that in the world in general. And so when they see someone who actually can do that, it's enticing. Yeah.
And how do you think that would ripple through a culture or a town or a society, that empowerment?
Yeah. We've seen it a little bit already in Bend. Even just from like the little bit of when I first started with here in Bend, the community itself, like the business community, I should say, has already become more accepting of of differences, of sexualities, of different genders. And I think a lot of that is because of burlesque. We've really pushed ourselves into the business community here, saying like, hey, we're a real thing, like, this is important. Yeah, I've already seen some of that change. I mean, just for the fact of like, we have now talked to like Tower Theater, and they've been like, yeah, like we could maybe do a show one day if it was large enough. Like, whereas several years ago, it was not even a question. We wouldn't have been able to. And so you see that in the business community, and then you also see it really push like the sexual community here, and just sexual empowerment here, specifically through the LGBTQ plus community. One of our members, Deb Autry, she started it in Bend Burlesque, and has now gone and created her own like drag troupe, because through Bend Burlesque was able to come to terms and come to confidence of their gender and their sexuality, and has now created a whole other troupe, drag-based troupe in Bend, and is like reaching out with Central Oregon, which is a huge LGBTQ plus outreach program mainly for children. But yeah, so we've seen all these branches just like come out in the community and stuff, which is pretty awesome to see. So
And what other kinds of shows or how are you developing your burlesque career now and or in the future, do you think?
Yeah. So after being creative director of Bend Burlesque and helping out the community and the burlesque community that way, I've just recently left, and a couple other performers have joined up, and we want to create another vision, another outlet for the community here, especially because Bend is growing. It is large and there is plenty of room for more. So we kind of thought we'd rather someone that's inside this community already create a new troupe, as opposed to just an outsider coming in. We thought it kind of would vibe a little bit better. So yeah, we are in the works, very, very beginning works. We don't even have a name of a new troupe. So that is kind of the next thing for me. And we've already kind of talked about it being more than just burlesque, but kind of taking it back to more of how like the Ziegfeld Follies worked, of like they'd have this, giant burlesque production, and like then they'd have a comedian come in or a singer come in. And so it's creating more artistic opportunities for other fields in this area as well. So that's kind of our next adventure. So we'll see how that goes.
And that sounds like a lot of producing work. So you started as a dancer and you're a licensed massage therapist.
Yeah.
What about all the skill sets, the business savvy, the entrepreneurial project? How did you learn those? And can you talk about what that looks like?
Yeah. I have learned several different skill sets throughout my life, most of them throughout my burlesque career. Obviously, dancing and teaching and choreography, I just had already known before burlesque. And then I've learned also before burlesque, I learned music editing, because you just kind of, as a choreographer, that's a really amazing skill to have yourself. So I've learned in that and developed even more confidence in that through burlesque, music editing and costuming. I have learned through burlesque, although I'm still trying to learn. I can't really sew on a sewing machine yet very well. So that's a work in progress, but there are definitely other artists in this town that can do that. So I'm able to rely on them. I've learned producing as well throughout my burlesque career here in Bend. That was one of the amazing things that Bend Burlesque gave me the opportunity to do. And I'm very grateful for that learning experience. And then business savvy wise, I also am an owner of a gym here in Bend. That's kind of more recent. It's my fiance's gym, but I've helped him expand and kind of taken over all the behind the scenes stuff. So that's been something I've been self-educating a ton about on marketing and finances and everything of that sort. And so it's kind of exciting knowing and feeling quite confident in those skills to then now bring that into this new burlesque adventure, because that is needed for sure. So yeah.
And so we are in the middle of a pandemic here.
Yes.
How has the pandemic impacted your shows in the last year and a half to 2 years?
Yeah. A lot. It's canceled some shows. We in the community, we have tried to keep shows going, even live shows, as long as we felt like, numbers were low enough and everything, of course. And because I do think keeping live shows is important for your artists. This is a form of payment for them. but obviously there's a lot of stipulations that comes with that, of keeping people safe and masks and limiting sizes of both, sizes of how many performers are in a show, but also like audience size and venue coordinating. It's definitely a lot. But we've been able to have a couple shows here and there throughout the last 2 years. We did try kind of doing some online stuff, mostly through Patreon. That's hard. We didn't really get into it that well. It's really hard to, first off, get people to pay for online tickets of an online show. That's like a whole thing within itself. And then a lot of troupes out there have done shows for free, hoping to just get tips in, but then tips don't come in. So now you've just asked all of your artists to create acts and perform for free, which is not something that we tried to at the very beginning, but it was not very sustainable at all. So we just kind of have let that go and like not dived into online performing. Those that did great in the wider burlesque community, awesome. Like, props to you. That didn't work out so well here in this smaller community. So yeah, when we're not performing, we've all just taken different breaks and everything as well. And that has been really helpful. I know me personally, I've like tried to get better at sewing through this. It's not going that great, but you just try and you learn and you adapt to things as they come.
So when you're putting together either a show or an act for yourself, what's the topic there in Bend around the topic of, what's the conversation around the topic of cultural appropriation?
Yeah, I don't know if there's particularly a conversation between people here in Bend. There definitely should be, but we haven't really been able to dive too much into that. Partially though, because I don't think we've really seen, or I haven't really seen people like appropriating things, or wrongfully appropriating things and stuff. And so the conversation hasn't like needed to come up from that. I think it's obviously a conversation that should be had in the world. Me personally, I just like to try to have like my own thoughts and ideas. And I don't know, I wouldn't ever steal somebody's thoughts and ideas. Obviously, if somebody, a million people out there have done a balloon act, I don't think it's appropriating at that point, but if, only one person has done this particular act or, had a particular prop, like, no matter who that person is, like, I wouldn't personally use that because I feel like, well, that's their thing. Like, why would I, take that away? So that's just my personal like view. I just try to like be conscious of that. Of, if I watch burlesque online, I'm not gonna immediately steal what I've seen. And I mean, culture in general, just, I don't know, just being conscious of what you're doing and what's your intention for what you're doing. That's what I just, think about as I create my own. So
yeah. And then experience with diversity in Bend. What's your experience with diversity in burlesque in Bend? And do you, when you're curating a show or putting a show together, do you do outreach? How are you working around that topic?
yeah, Bend is very white. very white or white passing town. That certainly poses a challenge if you're trying to create, you know, a diverse troupe and give everybody's opportunities. Yeah, I mean, we don't turn anybody away, mostly because like we're really sought after between all these, you know, smaller bar venues and private gigs and stuff. So we just need more dancers regardless of who they are. Yeah, so we don't turn anybody away. We have not been that amazing at outreach. That was actually just a conversation I had this last month with several different people just in the burlesque community of how can we, obviously, like we're very white and a lot of our troupe members are white. Why is that? You know, I know Bend's a white town, but there's still, you know, diversity in the town. And so trying to figure out how can we reach out. Maybe people don't know about us. Maybe, you know, we've kind of talked into that and are trying to brainstorm different ways and different communities to reach out within Bend and within Central Oregon. So that's been, yeah, that's a thing that's definitely going on. Yeah, and then as far as like diversity in, you know, gender and sexuality, I mean, we're pretty diversified in both sexuality, gender not quite as much, but we're definitely trying to get more diversity in that. Like I said, we don't turn anybody away, so it's just about trying to convince people that it's okay for every gender and everybody to do burlesque, which is probably a challenge when a lot of our bodies look similar. So from the outside, so yeah.
Well, that sort of already answers my next question about challenges facing burlesque.
Yeah.
So a final question, what do you wish the general public would understand about burlesque?
Yeah, I wish first off they would just understand what it is. I feel like anytime I'm like, oh, I'm a burlesque artist, people are like, what is burlesque? I've never heard of it. Yeah, so then, you know, it's trying to mention, you know, cabaret artist or classy stripping or, you know, all these things. But that's the first off. And then second off, I just wish the general public would really understand that everybody can do burlesque, you know, just like my philosophy has always been like everybody can dance, you know. You may not be, you know, this professional, amazing, like incredible, good looking dance, like dancing really well. It might just be like this, but that's still dancing. And that's the same with burlesque. Like everybody can do burlesque. It might not look the same as one person, but it shouldn't be looking the same as one person. It should be looking like how you want it to look. So.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.